Welcome to My Hometown, the program that explores clubs, organizations, businesses, and issues across Nassau and Suffolk counties and sheds light on the different towns that are making a difference.
Hello and welcome to My Hometown. I'm Bill Horan. Today, I'm excited to welcome back to WHPC Airwaves a guest who first appeared here about 15 years ago, Paul Mila. Paul is an author from right here in Carle Place who is also a scuba diver and underwater photographer. He is the author of a children's series of 3 books in the Harry Hawksbill Sea Turtle Adventures. His books are entitled Harry Hawksbill Helps His Friends, Gracie Green Turtle Finds Her Beach, and Larry Loggerhead Travels to the Sea Turtle Hospital. Paul, welcome to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be back, and I can't believe it's been 15 years.
I know. I was shocked when I read that also.
Where did the time go?
Now, you've had such an interesting life. You've been a business person. You've been an author of fiction books, now an author of children's books. How do you get into this? And a photographer of underwater. And I know TV has even, I think, wasn't it National Geographic did a study on you?
National Geographic, yes. Evidently, I posted some of my videos on YouTube, and I guess Nat Geo must have people who troll YouTube looking for material. Mm-hmm. And one day I got a call from them saying, we'd like to do this little based on one of your videos that you posted. There was a barracuda attack down in Cozumel, and they found it very interesting. And they said, we'd like to have you on the show. I said, great. The funny part about that was they said, we're going to do an interview with you. I said, wonderful. I have this room in my house with all kinds of ocean pictures and creatures and stuff. And they said, no. Our contract with Nat Geo, because they were like the production company, says we must have no man-made structures in the view. I said, I live in Nassau County, one of the most populous areas in the world. And they said, well, aren't there beaches? I said, yeah, we can go down to the beach, but it's February and it's really cold. And she goes, think you can handle it for like 20 minutes? I said, okay. She kind of shamed me into it. So we did the interview down there, and it went pretty well.
I remember that, and I remember seeing it on TV, and I remember you telling me it's February, it's cold out.
Yes, I'm a wimp.
Now, you're, of course, here on Long Island. There's water all around us.
Right.
But where do you go scuba diving at Jones Beach, or do you go
I've gone locally a couple of times. One off Long Beach. Did a couple of dives out there because there are a lot of shipwrecks out here, a lot of history you can visit and things like that. But basically, at this point in my life, I like 100-foot visibility, warm water, not the 10-foot visibility we have here, or 20 feet at the best, and kind of cold water. So I like to dive in the Caribbean mostly. I've been lucky to dive in the Bahamas, Curacao, Bonaire, Roatan. My favorite place is Cozumel, right off the coast of Mexico. I've been lucky enough to make a couple of trips out to the Pacific, where I've dived in Tonga, South Pacific, and Hawaii. But most of my diving is in the Caribbean. And that's why I'm trying to hang out.
To give us normal people who think taking a train is exciting, and while you're underwater and seeing the colors and the beauty, et cetera, of different lands, any experiences that stand out that kind of would give us an insight?
Yeah, a couple. Just before the pandemic, there was let's call it a bucket list trip. I always wanted to do this, which was diving with great whites. And
wait! Aren't those the things in Jaws?
With the big
when
teeth.
I say the thing, yeah, with the big teeth,
with the big
sharks.
teeth. Those guys, yes.
And they're
yes.
not real friendly. They kind of
not real friendly,
aggressive.
Well, they're not as aggressive as you think. They're unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do. They could go by 1 minute and just go past you, or the next minute, all of a sudden make a quick turn, and all of a sudden your heart skips a few beats. Luckily, it was going to be in a cage, so I would not go. I've been with other sharks where you can be out in the water with them a little bit and feel relatively safe. Great whites are a whole other story. So this was in a cage. The only thing in the back of my mind was that scene from Jaws where the cage scene didn't work out too well for Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes.
So I kept that in the back of my mind. But so that I wanted to do. So, and I got that done just before the pandemic. But probably the most, in a way, maybe a high-octane experience or an incredible experience was actually free diving, which means you kind of hold your breath and you go down, and snorkeling, without a tank. Free diving with humpback whales off the coast of the Dominican Republic. And because that was, not in the cage, it's a prolonged experience because the whales don't mind you're there. And when you get within 10 or 15 feet of something that's 50 feet long, moving, it's not an inanimate, Hollywood prop, you get this sense of how big they are, how small you are, how powerful they are, how powerful you're not. And then when they look at you, it's the most unsettling thing. It's unsettling in a very nice way. When a fish looks at you, it's got this little stare, and it's basically the mind process is, are you food? Are you a threat? part of the background. That's about it. When a whale looks at you, you can feel this intelligence behind the eye, and it's studying you, and you realize you're being evaluated by a very powerful intellect. Actually, they're very intelligent mammals. So you feel you're being evaluated by this huge presence, and you get the distinct impression that they're not as impressed with you as you are with with them.
Now, if I heard you correctly, was this while you were holding your breath?
Basically, you kind of snorkel along with them, but you can, if they're down, you can look, take a deep breath, go down with them for a few minutes and whatever, and look at them, whatever, and swim with them. But then as they come up, you come up, a lot of times they're at the surface, you're at the surface, and taking short scuba snorkeling breaths, but your head is below the water as you're snorkeling, and they're floating along at the surface doing their thing,
So you're really reasonably close to the water level.
At that point, you're pretty much on the surface for most of the experience, as they are, or if they're below you, you're just watching them, But you're in the water with these things, and it's amazing to be this close to something that big, and when they surface, and you're at the surface, and you hear this breath go, you feel that life force that they're breathing, and it's just an incredible experience. And when they look at you, they can actually change their expression. They have eyebrows. They can close their eye. They can kind of wink. They can look like that or look like wide-eyed. So as they're experiencing these emotions, you wonder what they're thinking about, because they're thinking all the time. And it's just that because it was a prolonged experience, you're down with them for 15, 20 minutes at a time. You don't know what's going to happen, but that was probably, to answer your question, the long answer to your question, the most exciting thing I've ever done is be in the water with these whales for a couple of days at a time.
And don't worry about long answers. You're fascinating. I'm sitting here with my mouth open thinking, this could be a whole other culture. We worry about people from space and aliens and everything. Here we have on the Earth with us whales, and you're kind of hanging around with them, playing in their environment.
Yeah, and the thing that impressed me about them was how they took pains not to hit me with their fins. There was one whale that came under me, and its tail fluke was going up and down, propelling it through the water. And I'm trying to take in all the details, the shape of the blowhole, the head, and it's going under me. I look back, and here's the tail fluke hits the surface, down, up, down. 2 more strokes, I'm going to be toast. So I closed my arms over my chest, hoping I'm not going to get broken ribs. As it passed me on the upstroke of its fluke, it held its fluke until it passed me, and then it resumed. So it knew where I was in the water in relation to its body and held its fluke. Another time, I was looking at this baby whale, and the baby whales, it's the first time seeing humans. They were just born, so they're fascinated. Now I look down, here comes mom. Now, you wouldn't ordinarily get in close to a baby, a mammal like a lion or a bear cub, right? And here comes the whale. I'm saying, what's going to happen? Maybe this wasn't a good idea. And she has these long, 10-foot long pec fins, these side fins. And as she turned, she would have hit me with it if she had kept them out. But she deliberately, as she turned, withdrew her pectoral fin back along her body and slid past me so she wouldn't hit me with it, So I'm amazed by the fact that this huge mammal, whale, is taking pains not to injure me as it's watching me while I'm watching it.
Cars on the expressway don't go to that much trouble. They just hit you and keep going.
I felt a lot safer than I do on the LA.
And on the Belt Parkway. I was going to say that.
Or the Belt Parkway.
Isn't that amazing how smart they must be to do that? Because you're on the water. To them, you could be another creature, and not anything bad about that, but you know how to get out of their way, or so they think.
Right.
And, the ecosystem under there knows how to behave. And yet they're watching out for you and purposely didn't hit you with the fin.
I was amazed, and when I surfaced and I got back in the boat, I'm telling this to the boat driver, and he goes, we had these little small, we were in like little pangas, little motorized, boats. I told him what happened, and I thought maybe he's not going to believe me. He goes, oh yeah, that's what they normally do. If they know you're there, they'll take pains not to hurt you. So I find that, considering what we've done to whales, as humans have, almost wiped out whales, and here the whales are taking care not to hurt us. I thought that was kind of amazing.
Was there any experience where you said prayers really quickly and said, God, I'm coming up? Did you pass a shark or anything?
Other times, yeah, but not with whales, but sometimes with sharks. You never know what they're going to do because they're kind of unpredictable, But the moment passes pretty quickly. And if you're taking pictures, you don't think about it until, gee, that could have gone bad, but usually it doesn't. So.
And while you're down there, that's what you're doing, taking underwater photography.
Yes, definitely. Yes, because it's one thing to try and describe what you're seeing, but I found I really wanted to get into photography to be able to take pictures and show people what I saw and share it.
Well, before we go further, I'd like our audience to know that you're listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, and today we're talking with Paul Mila, an author from Carle Place who is also a scuba diver and underwater photographer. He's the author of a children's series of 3 books in the Harry Hawksbill Sea Turtle Adventures. Harry Hawksbill Helps His Friends, Gracie Green Turtle Finds Her Beach, and Larry Loggerhead Travels to the Sea Turtle Hospital. Paul, how did you go from just enjoying this as a sidelight in your regular life to you were writing fiction books, and now you go to children's books? Is that unusual in the author's world?
Probably, because people kind of tend to stay in the genre that they like to write, and the type of books they like to write. And I happened to be at a scuba show. It was like a scuba flea market, if you will, called Beneath the Sea. It was an annual event every year out in Secaucus, which they used to have prior to the pandemic. Now they've resumed it again. But anyway, so I was there, and they had people from the scuba industry selling things and trips and equipment and stuff like that. And you could be there with your books, you know. So I happened to be there with my fiction books at the time. And I happened to pass one of the booths for a company called Best Publishing, which is down in North Palm Beach, Florida. They do a number of different kinds of books on underwater medicine and things like that, and they have other scuba-related books. And one of the executives there said, you know, they knew I was a writer because I happened to mention it, and they said, well, we're thinking about starting a children's line. Would you be interested? So I said, well, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, let me give it a thought. And they said, if you ever get something going, get back to us. We exchange business cards and things like that. So I went home and I said, okay, what can we write about here for kids? Wow. And I started looking at all my photography, all of my photographs, and I said, okay, maybe I could do something with these pictures. I have a lot of pictures. And that was the genesis of the whole thought process about trying to put something together for kids.
The first question that hit me there is, why do they have an underwater symposium in Secaucus, New Jersey? Is that the home of underwater diving?
Well, there's a lot of diving in New Jersey. However, I think it's more of being able to get an economically viable location. This is out at the convention center in Secaucus. You know? So they needed a big space because it's huge. I mean, you wouldn't believe it's the entire East Coast and the country descends on. They have a couple of these around the year, around the country every year. One was in Secaucus, one's in California, one's down south somewhere. So the whole scuba world descends on these things, you know, commercial as well as people who were just in it for fun. So they needed a big space, and I guess that was affordable and economical for them to do.
And it sounded like you were one of these examples of life, right time, right place.
Total serendipity.
Now, your books are a little different in that instead of having an illustrator or an artist or maybe a few drawings in there,
right?
What's different about your books? Tell us.
Okay, well, I decided to use underwater photography to show the characters because while illustrators, basically to be able to actually give, I think, children a better idea of what things really look like as opposed to an illustration. The advantage of illustrations is that you can kind of tailor the illustration to your text. You can tell the illustrator, okay, I'm talking about this, so draw me something like this, and they'll do that. With photography, you don't have that flexibility. You have to kind of find the right photo that goes with your text. You just can't change a photograph on the fly. But to your question, I thought using my photography, besides the fact you wouldn't have to split costs with or royalties with an illustrator, would give children a better idea of what things actually look like down there, what the creatures really look like. So while the books are, I would call educational fiction, it lends an air of realism so they can actually see what it looks like down there.
And when you say educational fiction, I have to tell you, in preparation for the show, you gave me 3 copies of these books. I started reading them, and I was fascinated. It was like a mystery story. Of course, it's not, but I was learning so much about turtles. And I think when we talked before the show, and I said to you in one place, you told me, if a turtle isn't happy with the beach area they'll actually travel 1,000 miles to, was it Hilton Head Island?
Right. They'll
lay their eggs?
What it is with sea turtles is that they have, I guess you might call it internal GPS, where they somehow navigate back to the beach or near a beach where they were born. So they will be born on the beach, make their way to the water, past all kinds of obstacles depending on what the condition of the beach is, which is another environmental issue. And during their life cycle, they may travel 1,000 miles through the oceans, but when the time is ready for these female turtles to lay their eggs, and the males, I guess, want to be in the same area too, they will navigate themselves back to either the same beach or a nearby beach. People aren't sure exactly how they do it. It could be a part of a orientation with the Earth's magnetic field that guides them. But anyway, they get back to that same area, so it's kind of fascinating.
I can't figure out how to get from Carle Place to Mineola without directions and the GPS on, and turtles going underwater go 1,000 miles to lay their eggs.
I couldn't have found my way to the studio without.
That's why I thought that was so amazing. I'm sitting there, I say, I've got so many questions for you. Of course, we always have things we want to talk about on the show, and that will make for an interesting radio show. But my gosh, there was so much in these books, and I think any young person reading them, because the young children who get into these books and who they're written for, they are always so much into animals and the new things that we have forgotten years ago. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point as far as the educational part of this thing, because you're trying to find a balance between entertainment and education. And if you notice, these books are all what's considered level 3. There are different levels according to in the school system how they rate books, or they categorize books rather. And level 3 is, and it's kind of a subjective system. One publisher's level 3 might be another publisher's level 2, but to give us a little bit of a guidance, like they have definitions. For example, like level 3 would now be longer sentences with more information. Level 2 could be shorter information, shorter sentences with less information, things like that. And a level 4 could be complex paragraphs, things like that. So there is a little bit of guidance, and we were aiming for a level 3 because we thought that would be a good mix of information plus entertainment and keep the children interested. And so the age factor for and also depending on how smart the child is, sometimes a 2-year-old might find this great, or sometimes a 4-year-old might. It covers a broad range depending on the child's ability to digest information.
I won't tell you my age because it's going to be embarrassing in some cases.
Well, we're close.
You also explained there was a word in there, nominy or something, and I'm looking at
anemone, yes.
And by the end, underneath, you explain how to say it, and I go, he even knows that I'm not going to say it correctly, so he gives the phonetic spelling and everything. But no, it was really interesting. And again, before I started looking at them, I didn't say to someone, I want to know more about turtles. But in reading your book, which I think is a great compliment to you, I did want to know more about them, and you educated me so much about them that I find them fascinating. Why a turtle, though? Why didn't you pick a bear or, an eagle?
Okay. Well, also to your point, I have had that same comment from a number of adults who said, gee, no, my son, daughter, whoever, enjoyed it. And you know what? I learned something too. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. I really enjoyed that compliment from you, and I've heard it from some other people, which is really, gratifying. Why turtles? Okay, so you have a lot of pictures there. You've been taking pictures for many years. So I'm saying to myself, okay, what do I have a lot of pictures of in different poses that I could write text around? And it just so happens that sea turtles, when you find a turtle underwater, as long as you don't do something stupid like try and touch it, grab it, molest it, whatever, they kind of ignore you as long as you kind of stay part of the background. They'll go about whatever they're doing, eating a sponge or doing this or doing that. So you can take a lot of photographs from different angles, and that gives you the ability to be able to shape some text around what you're trying to write. Because I have a lot of, either the same turtle, or some turtles look very similar to other turtles, so it could be the same turtle in the book, So the fact that they kind of hang around, they're good photo subjects, put it that way. They hang around, let you take a lot of nice pictures of them, and then they'll go on their merry way. But, it gives you the opportunity. So I said, okay, I have a lot of these turtle photos. We're doing great. Let's go on from there and figure out a story.
And they really don't bother you when you're taking the pictures, as you said. And I guess they kind of like it, so long as you don't bother them.
They kind of pose, look at you, and then go about their business.
The fact that you have 3 different books and 3 different topics in the series, was there an inspiration for them, or do you just sit there and get a lightning bolt?
Yeah, well, a little bit of both. I was sitting there one night, and I said, okay, and all of a sudden the lightning bolt kind of hit me. That I was looking through, what do I have? I have a lot of pictures of other things. What of? And one thing about sea turtles and angelfish is that the angelfish kind of like to hang around with the sea turtles because the sea turtles like to eat, especially hawksbills, like to eat sponges, okay? Which is also a favorite food for angelfish. However, to tear apart a sponge, you need a good strong beak, which is what a hawksbill has, which is why it's called a hawksbill. It has a bill like a hawk. And as they rip off the sponge, little bits are floating around, and the angelfish pick it off. They get a free, easy meal. So the angelfish,
smart angelfish,
they are. So they've learned to say, okay, here's a turtle. If I hang around with this turtle, I'm going to get a free lunch. So the turtle does the job of ripping off pieces of sponge. The angelfish, eat the pieces. So I thought, okay, now I have a lot of angelfish here, and I'm looking at these pictures of the angelfish. I go, no, they're all bodies type very, very similar, but they all do look different. Okay, you have the queen angels have their blue and yellow scales. Gray angels, as their name indicates, are mostly gray, but they have other color tones. French angelfish are black and gold, black with gold scales. They're similar, but they all look very different. How about a lesson for children about accepting those who are a little bit different from us, how to get along with each other? And I was kind of thought back to a song I used to listen to when I was growing up, called "You've Got to Be Carefully Taught" in the original Broadway production of South Pacific, which also became a movie, about this young sailor who falls in love with a young lady but can't get over his own racial prejudice because he was taught from an early age, you don't hang around with these kind of people. So I said, okay, maybe that's an interesting lesson. How can I adapt this for children? So I thought, okay, Harry Hawksbill, this wise old sea turtle, and sea turtles do live to be about 80 if they hang, if we don't do something stupid to kill them, decides, he finds out that his angelfish friends, the queens, the grays, and the French angel aren't getting along because they look so different from each other. And he teaches them in the book that, hey guys, if you just take the time to hang out together, get to know each other, you're going to like each other. So that was so it was a lesson of acceptance for kids. That was the story.
Little did that writer probably know 60 years ago when he wrote it, he would impress you so much that you would spend your whole career waiting to write a children's book and bring out that point.
Thank you, Rogers and Hammerstein.
Paul, before we go further, I want our audience to know that if you're wondering who this interesting person is, I'm going to tell you. You're listening to My Hometown on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan. Our guest today is Paul Mila, M-I-L-A. He's an author from Carle Place, and he's also a scuba diver and underwater photographer. He's the author of a children's series of 3 books in the Harry Hawksbill Sea Turtle Adventures. Harry Hawksbill Helps His Friends, Gracie Green Turtle Finds Her Beach, and Larry Loggerhead Travels to the Sea Turtle Hospital. Paul, if someone is looking for one of these books, now we've convinced them, and again, I've enjoyed going through them, where do they find them?
Okay, they can go on Amazon. They can put my name in and Harry Hawksbill, and the books will come up. They can go to my website, which is milabooks.com.
M-I-L-A.
M-I-L-A books.com. And those books will come right up along with my other books. And they can then, there's a link that either goes back to Amazon, or if they decide to say, click on purchase a signed copy, that will come to me, and then they can buy a signed copy from me directly, which I was hoping that's how most of the sales would go. However, most of the sales go to Amazon because I think there's that trust factor that people know it works and there's no surprises. So most of the sales go through Amazon. But again, I can sell them directly as a signed copy off the website, or the website links back to Amazon also.
Now, can you give us some tips for an aspiring author, someone who might say, this is what I wanted to do right from the beginning? What are some of the things you've learned, and maybe a tip that helps them avoid some problems?
Read, and read, because you learn so much from reading other authors. Pick an author that you like and enjoy the writing, and read several books by that author, or maybe pick a different author if you want to go into something slightly different. But you learn a tremendous amount just by reading. And if you just read, not just for the content or the enjoyment, but kind of pay attention to how the author describes things, the writing style, whether you want to copy it directly or just, use it as a guide, But that's one of the best ways to, get into writing and then start writing a lot. You might throw away a lot of what you write, but you're going to find the more you write, you're going to start keeping things. And so this sounds interesting. Okay, I think I did pretty good with this, And it's a hard process. It's kind of lonely. You're by yourself. It's a little tiring mentally, But it's also gratifying and enjoying. I enjoy it, and that's about the best advice I could give to somebody who wants to start writing is just read a lot, and that'll give you a guidance on what to do.
Is there a place, and I don't mean this as a joke, where you get inspiration either in the shower or walking or drinking a milkshake or out in the ocean?
Amazing. You hit one of them.
Okay, the milkshake.
It's the shower, actually.
Okay.
Something about that warm water hitting my brain and my head just kind of like sparks some, a problem that I was wrestling with. I'm in the shower and go, oh, I got it. Okay, I can figure this out now. Also, for some reason, just before going to sleep or just waking up, something must happen in your brain when you're in that kind of twilight zone, where if I'm wrestling with a problem, all of a sudden the solution kind of comes to me, how to treat a character, how to do a scene. And in that process of just going to sleep or just waking up, all of a sudden the solution comes. So it must be something in that half-awake brain when you relax, that works.
You'll be happy to know our neuroscientists that we have on, etc. They say that's just when either shower, walking, or before or after sleep, because I guess our mind relaxes and we're open to new experiences, and then maybe the connectors start to work and do it. But
you don't feel cluttered.
It works, yeah. Maybe that's what it is. For someone starting out, what's the most challenging part of being a children's book author?
Trying to find something that's interesting for children. Identifying that and going with it is getting the idea is a little difficult. It's a little frustrating to be self-published. There's the self-published versus what they call traditional publishing, where a publisher picks you up. Selling books is a tough business, I'll tell you. But it seems that if you're lucky enough to get picked up by a regular publisher, or sometimes it's an agent and then a publisher, but in my case, a publisher happened to find me. The reception when you want to sell a book, either in a store or to somebody, is different when you've been published by a publisher, because I think they feel you've been vetted by someone who's going to invest in you, as opposed to a random person who's now you can self-publishing is very easy. You can write anything you want and get it self-published. And the issue there becomes some credibility, accuracy of facts, things like that. So when you've been already published, that kind of takes those problems out of the equation, and you find a more receptive audience to what you're trying to do.
If you can remember back to the good old days when you were a child, were there any books that come back to you and say, you know what, that was the book that either made me an author, little did I know it then?
There was one book I used to read over and over again. I can't think of it. Maybe in the shower I'll think of it tonight.
That's right. Then you give me a call.
But I remember I had a couple of books as I was a kid, and I read them over and over again. And for the life of me, I just can't think of what the names of them were now. I guess also for me, maybe it's a left brain, right brain thing. But for me in school, math was a mystery. But I could write and I could read. I enjoyed that. So I always enjoyed reading. Always enjoyed writing in school, which led me into a business career also. And I guess that was just me. So I was lucky enough to be, I guess, oriented that way.
Really, this has been fascinating. And as I can say, I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And I'm sure little kids who just soak this stuff up would really, because like I said, you give the photography pictures so they know what it's going to look like. You give a background. It's not just 10 or 20 words. The books were actually a little longer than I expected. But very educational. So I think for any young person, and what level did you say? Not third grade.
It's a level 3, which is not third grade. But and the age range could be anywhere from 2 to 6 or 7 or 8. I've read in our local school here in Carle Place for the second and third graders, and they've done fine with the books. And they're a little older, and they still find them fascinating and interesting.
For our audience, we want you to know that we've been talking to Paul Mila, Mila. He's an author from Carle Place. He's also a scuba diver and underwater photographer. He's the author of a children's series of 3 books in the Harry Hawksbill Sea Turtle Adventures. Harry Hawksbill Helps His Friends. Gracie Green Turtle Finds Her Beach. And Larry Loggerhead Travels to the Sea Turtle Hospital. Paul, thanks so much for taking time out today and spending it with us.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. It's great to be back.
I'm Bill Horan. I want to thank you for listening to this week's edition of My Hometown.
We like to get your feedback on My Hometown. Send your comments to WHPC@ncc.edu. Nassau Community College, where success starts and continues. Till next time, this is Bill St. James. And remember, there's no town like your hometown.